Patrick.
Hello, Brian. I'm just calling to thank you, man. You reaching out, telling the campaign to do all these media blitzes, Howard Stern and et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
That directly correlated to the betting odds when she completely collapsed. I think Trump's now at 65% on the poly market. She's down.
Who cares? Who cares what a betting market says?
Well, I just want to thank you, because it seems like as soon as she went out and did her media blitz, everybody realized that she's not going to win.
I don't know what poll you're talking about or what you're referring to. There's websites out there that have it about 53 to 47. I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. So quite frankly, Patrick,
I have a hard time believing that. Everyone knows you love betting.
I don't. First of all, it's illegal in the United States of America to bet on the elections. I'm not sure if you even understood the laws behind that, but that's okay, Patrick. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about other than some random betting website that says Donald Trump has a 65% chance to win?
All the betting odds are showing.
Okay, I'm not interested. I'm not interested.
Predicted.org is another one.
Patrick, I'm not interested in what betting odds are in other countries. I'm really not. Is there anything of? Let me ask you a question, Patrick. Do you think it's proper to call Tim Walz Tampon Tim?
Well, as anybody, bookies.
Okay. So I just said I'm not interested in having a conversation with you about bookies and offshores that are illegal to bet on about the elections. I could care less. By the way, Donald Trump was like 30-1 to become president when he entered the race in 2016. So I'm sure you were calling into conservative stations about that. What do you think of Antonio Brown, talking about tampons in boys' bathrooms, Patrick? Do you think that's a really important issue to talk about?
Are bookies a sensitive issue for you, Brian?
No, they're not. Bookies? Why are you asking me if bookies are a sensitive issue for me? What does that have to do with the topic? The answer is no. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Can you answer my question and have a semi-intelligent conversation with me? Or are you going to talk about bookies and offshore betting and all that stuff? Are we going to have a serious conversation, Patrick, or not? I'll leave that up to you. Because if we're not, I'm going to hang up on you.
No, nobody is concerned about Antonio Brown, but I tell you this.
What do you? Whoa! What do you mean nobody is concerned about Antonio Brown? Donald Trump decided that Antonio Brown was going to be his guest celebrity speaker in Pittsburgh. He thought that was the intelligent take on the right guy to speak, to introduce him up on stage. So when you say nobody, the guy who you are voting for and supporting is the guy who wanted Antonio Brown to speak on his behalf, a lifelong criminal and an illiterate fool. So when you say nobody, does that include Donald Trump, Patrick?
Well, I would prefer to have Antonio Brown introduce me over any Dick Cheney or Liz Cheney.
Gotcha. So let's talk about that. MAGA Patrick would rather have a lifelong criminal and an illiterate fool who hasn't paid his child support and physically assaulted a truck driver to introduce him, would rather have that than someone who is a politician and an educated woman and a former vice president of the United States. Patrick, is that your very intelligent MAGA take today, Patrick? Because that's a new one.
We all remember that the Cheneys lied us into a decade-long war, many decades.
Patrick, we can talk about policies and the fact you don't like some of Dick Cheney's. Guess what? I don't like some of Liz Cheney's policies. I disagree with the way she votes. But you see, Patrick, here's the difference that MAGA people like you struggle to differentiate. I'll explain, Patrick, and then I'll give you the chance to respond. You see, Patrick, there's a difference between not like somebody's policies and then somebody who's a lifelong criminal who belongs in jail. You see, you might not like the policies of Kamala Harris, but Kamala Harris is a decent woman who comes from a decent family. She's an educated woman who had to work hard to get to where she is. But you support a guy who was given a $500 million company from daddy, who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, who has been thousands of discrimination lawsuits he's had to pay out, the swindler with Trump University and many others that have filed for bankruptcy in his businesses, the man who's a 34-count felon, a liable sexual abuser. You see, people like you, Patrick, seem to struggle to differentiate what is a lifelong criminal and a horrible human being to someone who's a decent human being, but you just might not like some of their policies. Patrick, why do you struggle with that so much? Explain that to me.
Because I don't believe a policy of lying us into a forever war costing us trillions of dollars and millions of lives is just a policy. That's a bad person. It's a bad family. when they advocate for that and cost us what they cost us.
Okay, so there were a lot of Republicans and Democrats that were okay with the war in Iraq. I'm not defending that decision, Patrick, but it seems like you're defending Donald Trump, but you care about innocent lives, right? It sounds to me, Patrick, and this is a positive thing, right? You seem to care about innocent people dying, which is a good thing. I don't want innocent people to die either. So let's go with that for a moment, Patrick. When Donald Trump said we were going to have 15 cases down to 0 and that COVID was going to be gone by Easter, when Donald Trump took his coronavirus press conferences and turned them into political rallies, many people, including infectious disease experts around the country, would agree that that cost us lives. Innocent people died. So, Patrick, I understand you don't like the decisions of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. I don't either. We should have never gone to war in Iraq. Would you also agree, though, if you care about innocent lives, that Donald Trump's handling of COVID was horrendous, and per capita, we had almost more deaths than any other country in the world? So would you agree that Donald Trump did a really poor job in handling COVID?
I would say this administration is responsible for many deaths.
Not talking about this
Ukraine.
administration. That is not my question. You are going to stick to topic, and you are going to answer my question directly. I'll ask it one more time, and it's not about this administration. It's what happened in Donald Trump's administration. I will ask again. I need you to focus, Patrick, because you don't like the decisions made by Dick Cheney and George W. Bush. Fair game, no problem. I get where you're coming from. We agree. We shouldn't have gone to war in Iraq. The way he handled the coronavirus press conferences and turned it into campaign rallies, he said 15 cases down to 0. He said it'd be gone by Easter. He downplayed it constantly. Would you give Donald Trump the criticism for so many innocent Americans dying when he was president of the United States? Yes or no? Answer the question, please. And it's not.
I would encourage everybody to go out and get their boosters because COVID.
Okay. So the question again wasn't about getting your boosters. I need you to focus, Patrick. I know you're trying to be funny and being sarcastic, but now I'm going to ask the question for a third time, which you struggle to answer. You criticized Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, and you actually made probably the dumbest comment perhaps I've ever heard you make on this show, which is you'd rather have Antonio Brown introduce you than somebody like Liz Cheney. Antonio Brown, a lifelong criminal who doesn't pay his child support and has been charged with assault and pled no contest, has lived his life a deplorable life, who can barely read. And you'd rather have that guy introduce you than Liz Cheney or Dick Cheney. Okay, you don't like Dick Cheney, you don't like the Cheneys, you don't like the war in Iraq. No problem. You claim you care about people. I'm now going to ask you the same question for a third time, and it only has to do with Donald Trump. Are you okay with Donald Trump taking coronavirus press conferences and turning them into campaign rallies? Are you okay with him downplaying coronavirus and saying it was going to be gone by Easter, 15 cases down to 0? I'm going to give you one more opportunity to answer a question directly, because it seems like, Patrick, you're struggling a little bit to answer a question. And this question has nothing to do with this administration, and it has nothing to do with boosters. Please answer the question. Do you think Donald Trump handled coronavirus well? Yes or no?
I was not a fan of Operation Warp Speed. I was not a fan of the federal mandates that the Biden administration
didn't put in federal mandates alone. Donald Trump left it up to the states to shut down cities and states. So again, you are deflecting and you're not answering a direct question. You don't answer any direct questions to your rapist, 34-count felon leader who you support. You're not capable of answering any direct questions. You defend Antonio Brown, a lifelong criminal. So we shouldn't be surprised, Patrick, that you also defend a lifelong criminal in Donald Trump. Patrick, why do you look up to rapists and felons? Can I ask you that, Patrick? Why do you look up to rapists and felons?
I don't look up to families that are responsible for the lives of millions of Iraqis.
We're focusing right now, Patrick, on Donald Trump. You are voting for a man who is a liable sexual abusing rapist. You are voting for a man who is a 34-count felon. I'm wondering, when you go into that voter booth and you decide to vote, if you haven't already, what is it going to feel like to vote for a rapist? Can you explain that to the American people? What is that going to feel like to be voting for someone who hung out with Jeffrey Epstein? What is that going to feel like, Patrick?
If you want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein, we can talk about Jeffrey Epstein.
I'm talking about his relationship with Donald Trump. I'm talking about his relationship with Donald Trump.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And there was also an attorney that was representing the defendants in the 2007, 2008
Why are you not, Patrick,
right?
You're not answering my question directly. There's a theme here, Patrick. You don't put any responsibility on Donald Trump. When you go to that voter booth, you're going to vote for a guy who's a liable sexual abuser. That was proven in a courtroom. You're going to vote for a guy who's a 34-count felon. That was proven in a courtroom. So my question to you, Patrick, and I need you to focus, okay? How is it going to feel on Election Day when you decide to vote for a rapist, 34-count felon? I'd like you to please answer one question directly, if you may. If it's going to feel great, then tell us, Patrick. How is that going to feel?
Well, how does it make you feel that she's losing?
No. You don't answer. You don't answer.
assault?
You don't answer a question with a question, Patrick. I think I've asked you 6 questions and you haven't answered one directly. But that's okay, Patrick. I'm feeling very patient with people like you today. So I'm going to ask it one more time. Don't answer a question with a question. You should have learned that in first grade when all those teachers were indoctrinating you, right, Patrick? How is it going to feel when you vote for a man on Election Day who's a 34-count felon, liable sexual abuser, who has 30 women who have accused him of sexual assault or rape, a man who's paid off millions and millions of dollars in discrimination lawsuits because he didn't want black people living in the properties that he owned? I want to know, Patrick, how is that going to feel? I've asked you 6 questions about Trump and you keep deflecting it on others. How is that going to
I want to remind you.
I
want to remind you, we have a bet. We have a bet that Trump will get more than 20% of the black vote.
Yeah, and I'm sure
So
you'll pay
that
it,
is
Patrick.
$100.
The question
Hey,
wasn't
like
about
Obama
the
said,
question.
like
Hey, Patrick, the question wasn't about Donald Trump getting the black vote. I've asked you now 7 questions in a row, and you've been unable to answer every single time. Yes, Donald Trump is not going to get more than 20% of the black vote, but that wasn't my question, Patrick, so I find it very interesting. So what have we learned from Patrick today? We've learned that if he was running for president, which thank God he isn't, he might be more dangerous than Trump. He would rather have Antonio Brown introduce him on a stage than Liz Cheney. He wants to give criticism to Dick Cheney and George W. Bush for the war in Iraq, which, by the way, I have no problem with at all. I would agree with him there. But then when it comes to the mishandling of COVID, Trump didn't do anything wrong. He won't answer any direct questions, and he deflects. Patrick is your typical MAGA supporter. Patrick, I appreciate you calling into the show, but you prove what I say on the show every single day, which is this. Donald Trump's base is Patrick. Donald Trump's base is typical, uneducated, middle-aged white people that are ill-informed and watch Newsmax all day.